today. This is the second half of the interview with our official historian, Loyce Martinazzi, historian of Tualatin. And many of you know her, obviously. She was born in Tualatin, grew up here in Tualatin, and still lives in the area. She and Karen Lafky Carlson started the Historical Society almost 40 years ago, and then wrote a book about Tualatin's history. So she was here last month to talk about the old history of Tualatin. So today you're going to talk about Tualatin in your lifetime, 90 years. Isn't that amazing? So, yes, thank you, Loyce, for being willing to do this.
Thank you, God, for letting me live this long.
And we, the format will be, I'm going to feed her questions or topics for her to talk about. And so we ask that no questions during that time. And then after about 30 minutes or 40 minutes, then we'll invite you to ask her questions. And then after that, we have a few donuts left from the Lee Farms, which is that farm, part of your family owns and runs that farm. So, and she's sitting in a chair that belonged to her grandparents, Julius and Nettie Martinazzi, who farmed here many years, and it was donated to the Historical Society several years ago. So anyway, so to start, Loyce, you were born in the early 1930s during the Great Depression. So can you tell us a little bit about how that depression affected the community of Tualatin, and maybe the farms?
Well, starting about my birth, I was born in 1934, and was the second child of my parents, Art and Ann Martinazzi. And my first sister, my oldest sister, was born in a hospital, and they kept her there for 10 days. And the old St. Vincent's on the hill. And so my folks decided I would be born at home, but I gave my mother a pretty tough time. And my great aunt, Rose Juergens Castile, tried to deliver me. She was a midwife and couldn't do it, so they had to have Dr. Bissett from Tigard come in. And he said, "I will never deliver another baby for you at home, Ann." So anyway, that's how I got here.
Okay. And were there, I mean, it must have been hard for farm families during the Depression.
Very difficult.
And were there, I remember reading, I think in your book, that sometimes people would come, homeless or jobless people would come through town just looking for work or maybe just a meal. And do you remember that? Or
I don't remember it personally, but I know that Karen and I talked to Jane Ibach, and she said there were jungles, hobo jungles around, and that the men would come around to the house, to the back door of the house, and ask the lady for food, and that they would do some work. And so she said I'd have them chop some wood or work on a fence or do something, and they were glad to do the work and get a little food, and then they go back to their jungle and have a little fire and cook it up, and that happened quite a bit.
During the 30s and 40s, we had the school. In 1939, we had an elementary school built, and who built it or who funded it?
Gave us money and a loan, and then WPA hired all these local farmers to work on the school. So everybody worked on it. Edel brought his tractor over and dug out the basement, and different people worked on the school.
Oh.
And they got paid some from the WPA. It was a lifesaver for the community. There was no work.
And you attended that school
did.
on Boone's Ferry.
Yes.
Do you remember, did the school provide lunches for the children?
Yes, they did. I'm not sure when it started, but they had a cafeteria in the basement, and they would have lunch. It was later on. It was 20 cents a day. Quite often, though, my mother would make us lunches because they couldn't afford the 20 cents. And I remember one thing: she always had to fold up the paper sack that the lunch was in and take it home because she didn't have very many sacks, you know. And when I didn't bring it home, she wrapped it up in newspaper. Oh, I don't like that, so I brought them home after that.
And was there transportation to the school on a school bus?
There was a bus.
There was?
Yes, there was a bus coming.
Okay, okay. And do you remember any memorable teachers or subjects?
Oh gosh, my Mrs. Adair from Sherwood was my first grade teacher. She was just a wonderful person, so kind. I mean, a lot of us kids were from the farm and pretty shy. You know, we hadn't been around very many people. She was very comforting, very, very nice, kind teacher. Yes, I liked her very much. And then Pearl Yeager was a fourth grade teacher, and she had gone to school, to high school here at the old high school where your dad and my dad went to school. And so she was a teacher in the fourth grade.
Oh.
Yeah. And then B. Cole, who went to high school with my dad, with the three of them, Pearl and my dad and the other one. And so they all taught there at the school.
In one of the cases, underneath the school portrait or photo hanging on the wall, there's your autograph book from school, and Mrs. Adair wrote a note in that, and also B. Hindeman,
Yes.
who was the first principal,
Yes,
woman principal.
It was very, very dear to me. Both of those teachers wrote and really wrote nice things.
You've been involved in the Winona Grange for a long time. Can you talk about
Well, yeah,
the
the Grange
Grange?
started in 1895, and it would meet in the different halls. In fact, there was up here, this is what we call Old Town, and there was a store up by the railroad depot, and they met on the upstairs of that store, and then they moved to another store, and then they met at the high school. And when the high school was taken down or closed up, the Grange decided they should build their own building, and they just got together, and everybody helped. Everybody donated money and what they could, and I think your dad helped scrape out the basement.
My grandfather with his
your grandfather.
horses.
With the horses and the Fresno scraper, yes.
Yeah.
And the community was very proud of that. The land was donated by Johnson. The family just lived on the other side of the house, and it was really a big thing for the community, and said that the best dance floor in the county. I think it still is. And the Grange is very active now. Our president is right down here, and they're doing a lot of things for the community, things for old age care and health issues. We have a seed program that we give out seeds, and let's see, we have a, what is it called in the fall? Harvest Festival. And all the children come, and we give them things, and they have little things that they can make, and it's just a wonderful program. It's a wonderful program, and more kids are coming to it, and other people. It's very
That's
popular
wonderful.
and very well done, and I'm really proud of it, because my great-grandparents were charter members in 1895.
And I understand, was it Ethel Pennington who helped raise funds
Yes,
to build the
She
building?
was the master at the time, and yes, she told everyone, gave them the charge, you need to do something to make money so we can build this building, and then everybody would say what they did. Someone sold something, someone did this, and Ethel said, I swiped $1. But anyway, the community got together, and then a lot of the timbers were from a local farm, I think the Pennington's farm and another one up there, and so the community got together and worked on that.
And Ethel was a grandmaster for a
For
time.
several years, yes, quite a while.
Yeah. During World War II, how did that affect the community?
Well,
There was people who enlisted.
yes, a lot of people, a lot of young men enlisted, and some women, you know. And my dad was too young for the First World War, and he was too old for the Second World War. But he was a farmer, and farmers were generally
Excluded?
excused from the you know.
Service?
You have to forgive me because some words I can't quite bring up.
Oh, me too. Excused from service or enlisting,
Yeah,
probably.
yeah. From
The draft. Oh, the draft.
the draft, of course. Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. But you know, shoes were given. You could only get two pairs of shoes a year, and sugar was rationed, gas was rationed, and we had on our farm we had lots and lots of fruit trees, and so there was Mom with all that fruit, and hardly any sugar to can it with because that's what they did. Because she dried a lot of apples and things, and she did write to the draft or the whoever gave the stamps out and said, "We have all this fruit. You know, can I get extra sugar?" And I think she did get us some extra sugar.
And did some people work at the Kaiser?
Oh my gosh, everybody worked there.
Really?
I mean, my mom and dad both worked at the shipyards. One would work in the day shift and one would work in the night shift. And people just worked like crazy. Mom was a reporter at Sherwood in the Sherwood Valley News, and she would work up there. She would walk up to Jurgens Park on the highway and take a bus into Sherwood. And gosh, my dad worked, you know, he worked so hard on the farm. He had quite a few cows to milk, and we girls all milked cows. Started when we were 10 years old. Before that, he would milk, and the barn was quite a ways away from the house. And we kids would carry half a bucket of milk in each hand back to the house, and Mom would run up to the separator, you know, to get the cream. The cream would go to the dairy co-op in these little 5-gallon cans, and the milk, we'd go back, take it back, bucket at it, and feed it to the pigs. And we all worked together. We had to work. You know, times were tough.
Yeah. And yet you still had time to work you were involved in 4-H, weren't you?
Oh, 4-H was one of the most wonderful things in my life. I say the Grange, the church, and 4-H. And I don't know where Chris is now, but Kay and Clayton Nyberg were very, very active. Oh, I hope I didn't mess that up. And started 4-H clubs here, and I was in Kay's cooking club. She came to the school program, the Christmas program, in, I don't know what year it was, 1945 or something. And she asked my mother if my sister and I could join her 4-H homemaking club. And Mom said yes, and so we had cooking and sewing, and she was just wonderful. She was so tidy herself, you know. I'm kind of an artistic slob, I guess I like to think. But she was so tidy, and she was just so good. She would just teach us things, and we respected her. We respected her a lot. She kept her little. They lived in a little apartment over a garage, and it was immaculate, and everything about her was just immaculate. So I really thank her. And then Tony and I, my grandfather, Loyce Martinazzi, had registered Jersey cows, and he gave my sister Tony and me each a heifer, a registered heifer, and so we joined Clayton's 4-H cattle club, livestock club, and we took our little animals to the fair, and I got second place in showmanship, and I can't remember how the half was judged, and then we'd take our baking powder biscuits and things like that and be judged, and she taught us how to do demonstrations. And a neighbor girl and I put a demonstration together, and we won a big prize. I mean, what else could be better for a kid during the Depression than that kind of help? You know?
Yeah.
So I really thank Kay and Clayton and all the Nybergs for the 4-H program. It helped me grow up a lot, and other kids in the community. Yeah. We looked up to them.
So with all the work you had to do on your home farm and 4-H and the Grange, Was there anything that young people, teenagers, for them to do, just to recreate, to,
Nothing but
entertainment?
trouble. I mean, there was nothing to do. You could walk on the railroad track. If your mother caught you, you might get skinned alive. I don't know, but we kids, all of us worked out. We worked on. I don't know, Tony and I milked cows. We had 4 cows a day to milk, night and morning. And after we milked, we would go out and pick berries, or we worked in the Sipol onion flats, weeding onions. And a lot of kids did. They said that Martinazzi girls were good workers. And we were taught, Dad worked with us the first day, or till noon the first day, and he told us just how to do it. You get on your hands and knees, and you don't step on anything, that you watch and you have 3 rows, one in the middle, and you pull the weeds carefully and make sure you get them. He showed us just how to do it. And so we got paid 85 cents an hour, but the men got $1 an hour. No, pardon me, we got 50 cents an hour. And the men got $1 an hour, but we kept up with the men. So I said to Chet Fishbooker, we should get a raise. And his mother handled the money, and she gave us 85 cents instead of $1. But we did get do a little bit more. It was hard work, but we didn't think a thing of it. We got money. Dad took us to the Citizens Bank in Sherwood when we were 10 years old and started a bank account. And we got these little banks that had a key. You take it once a year to find out how much money you had. And you had a little book, because Dad could see how Mom was the same way. How hard it was for some people. Some people lost their property. Some people were homeless. But if you work hard and you save and invest, you get by. And I thank my parents for that. It was tough.
Were there dances, like on Saturday nights?
When I was just a kid, I guess, or before, there was down at where the park is now, they had a dance hall. And then the river parks were big in the 40s. The first river park was Juergens Park. Nobody hardly remembers that, but it was down by the golf course, and my great-uncle Juergens, Don Juergens, he started that. It was the first river park on the Tualatin River, according to Curtis Tigard. And, but he closed it up because, but I can remember across kitty corner from the cemetery, I can remember a great big sign, a wooden sign that said Juergens Park, and you walk down, or you could drive down there too, to the little park. And there wasn't much of a park. I mean, there was a little deck and a big rock that you would jump off of. There wasn't much, but Dad would take us down there, and he would fish, and we would play in the water. It was really fun. And then he bought the place up on the highway and started Juergens Park up there. They had a grocery store and a gas station. And a bar and little cabins for rental and a ballpark. And Rummer's Rest was the first one like that. And they were kind of kitty-cornered from each other, but the Rummer's Rest was on the river, and so it was really a big thing. You go to Rummer's Rest, that was top-notch. But there was Avalon across the river, and then there was, what's his name, Willie, can't remember what his name was.
So there were a lot of parks along the river.
Yeah. There was a park along Hazelbrook Road, just a little one at Willie's. I can't remember the name of it. And he would only charge $0.10 to get in, so people would go into that one and play the dime and swim across the river over to Avalon. And the parks all had canoes you could rent, and they had swimsuits you could rent, and little snack bars and things. So they were making money. And then, of course, later during the 50s or 60s, the river was condemned as the dirtiest river in the United States, and the parks all closed down.
What about, of course, nobody had a TV set then, but the radio, was that an important part of
Yes, you bet.
getting information? And
That's how you found out anything, and the newspaper, of course. Yeah, we got the newspaper, and we had a small radio at home.
You got was it the Oregonian, the Oregon Journal?
Oh, the Oregonian was in the morning, and the Journal came in the afternoon, but I think we just got the Oregonian.
And your mother wrote articles for the Sherwood
Valley News, yes,
Valley News.
Sherwood, which covered this whole area. Then it was later taken over by Tri-City News, Tigard. Tualatin and Sherwood.
Oh, she was quite a writer also.
My mother was quite a writer, and she has quite a story of her own life, hardship. But
Yeah.
she was a good mother. She was tough sometimes. She'd make us clothes, during the war and before. People would give her old clothes, and she would cut them up and make clothes for us kids.
Huh.
One time she got some parachutes, I don't know, that had silk on them, and she would make underclothes.
Oh.
And she had just an old treadle sewing machine,
Huh.
She worked so hard. My dad worked so hard. I want to tell you something, one thing, because you weren't going to ask it, but one time my mom was working in the news office in Sherwood, and Dad was grubbing stumps, which he was done always clearing land. And we kids were playing in the field, kind of along the fence line, and he would come over every once in a while to see how we were doing. And I don't know, I was 4 years old, 5 years old, and I had this thing in my hand. My God, that's a scraper. It's an Indian scraper.
Oh.
It was about that big, obsidian, beautiful.
Oh, wow.
Beautiful. And so we kept that, and then we collected a lot. Dad collected a lot of arrowheads and things like that. And then, of course, my older sister, being a primogeniture, she got everything. She got all those. I thought I should get that, and then it should be here.
Ah, yes.
Older sister. Yes.
We do. We do have a lot of arrowheads and points that have been. We do have a lot of Native American tools that farmers found, and we have some in our collection.
Oh, yes, we do.
Yeah.
And who was it? I think my dad said that where the hospital is now, that big field up there, when they plow it, it was just full of artifacts.
Really?
And of course, over up on Fano Creek, where it comes in, your dad found a bowl there, didn't he?
Yeah.
So there were people here.
Yeah. When you did you listen to the radio? Was it on a lot?
No, it was not a lot.
Do you remember programs that you?
Yeah, when we would
Might
come
have.
home from school, there would be the Lone Ranger, Tonto, and One Man's Family, I think, and then there was Oxidol. There was some about Oxidol. They were soap operas, I guess. So because they advertised all these soaps for women.
Yeah. So your family probably didn't have, or any family, working their farm, probably didn't have time to travel, to go to the beach, go to the mountains, or
No.
abroad.
The only trip we ever took that I remember was when my mother was expecting Vicky, our youngest child, youngest girl. I think it was 1945. And she took us down to the coast on the bus, and we stayed with my dad's cousin, Vella Barnes, who was Aunt Rose Castile's daughter. We stayed down there and played in the ocean, and it was really fun. It was the only vacation we ever had.
Yeah. And clothes. So your mom made some of your clothes, and do you remember what clothes were popular when you were like a teenager, or were there
Well, I don't
not a poodle skirt, I suppose, but
Dirndl skirts came, I think, after maybe when I was in high school. Can't remember. But when we were little, she would make us all of our clothes, and on this old treadle sewing machine. I don't know how she did it. And then when we could go to either Tigard or Sherwood High School when we graduated from 8th grade here at Tualatin, and I chose to go to Sherwood High School because some of the weak girls went to the May festivities, May Day, at both Tigard and Sherwood High School. I liked Sherwood's better, so that's why I chose. We rode our bicycles over there. So anyway, what was I going to say? What was your question?
well, about I guess
Oh,
the
I know what I
clothing
was going to
trends.
say. Yeah, because you didn't wear pants to school. Girls always wore skirts. And when I was like a sophomore or junior, all the girls wore what they call armachas. They were saddle shoes, but they were not black and white. They were tan and cream, or cream and kind of a tan color, and they were expensive. $12 a pair, armachas. Anybody remember armachas? And so I saved up my money. We'd go down to Portland every once in a while on the bus, stop down here, either at the White Store or up at Jurgens Park, and get the bus ride into Portland. And I bought myself a pair of armor shaws.
Wow.
Bought all of our clothes, and had money in the bank when I graduated from high school.
Did you, I think you had strawberries on your home farm?
Yes.
And did you hire people to harvest them? Or you just did all the work?
We did most of it. Yeah, there were some people came in, yeah, some people did. Yeah, we grew the old Marshall strawberry, which was so delicious. Such a wonderful berry, and it ripened in the middle of May, but it was soft and it wouldn't ship so well. So it kind of was phased out, and the Northwest came in, which would ship, but it was firmer, but it didn't have near the flavor in that ripe part.
I know, I think in the 40s and 50s, a lot of school children were hired to harvest berries and other crops in the area, and it was a good way for them to earn money for clothes or school supplies.
It was a wonderful thing, you know. We kids worked really hard now, and we're tickled to death to do it. We get the check, we'd put it in the bank, and we'd go cash it, go get buy our own school clothes, buy our own books. I never asked my parents for money.
Really?
Didn't have to. Well, not a lot of things, but
yeah. I think it was in 1975, then it was made illegal to hire children under the age of 12, I believe, to harvest.
Yeah, even with their parents.
Really?
And so I was involved with Lee Farms. I started Lee Farms with my husband, Larry Lee, and we had a big strawberry farm, and we got fined quite a little bit because we had kids there under 12 with their parents, but...
So then they went to UPIC?
Yes, we went to UPIC, and the freeway came through. Well, we didn't talk about the I-5 freeway. That changed the whole community so much. It would never be the same, you know. I remember walking down to the Nybergs when we had a 4-H meeting, and then later on, you know, they put this big highway up across it. It was strange. It was strange, yeah. Where was I going with that?
Well, that highway, the freeway, must have come through farms.
Oh, it did, and a lot of farms, you know, were broken up. The Christensens, not the Christensens, I can't remember their name now. Some of the people along that line, were bought out in pretty cheaply,
Yeah. But that freeway brought a lot of changes to Tualatin, didn't it?
Oh, yes. You know, Tualatin has always moved, the business part has always moved to the newest mode of transportation. And at first, you know, it was the bridge, the ferry and the bridge down by Tualatin River on Boone's Ferry. And then in 1887, this railroad up here, Union Pacific, went through, and John Sweet platted out this area, and some of the buildings are still here. That was the new, he named it Tualatin. Before that, it was called Bridgeport because, you know, there was nothing, the rest of it was, there was a little village there, but there was nothing else, but just homes and farms. And so he platted out this, called it Tualatin, and sold the houses, and at least 2 of the houses are still there, right over there. Burleson's,
and Wesh.
And, the little white house, and
Mac, the Mac house.
That's Burleson's, yeah, and the Wish house is still there. When we would walk to Sunday school, you know, this building was down by what's it, the freeway now.
This building, Boone's Ferry.
Yeah, it was down on Boone's Ferry, and we would walk from where we lived on Jurgens Road, walked all the way, cut through the cemetery, and then we'd cut through here too, and get down to the church. We'd walk all the way, and sometimes there wouldn't be a car. We'd meet on the way. You know, this is in the 40s. But there was an old fellow, Randall was his name. He had a little Model A, and he would sometimes stop and pick us up because he was going to church too.
your folks didn't drop you off in church.
If it was raining bad, Dad would take us, yeah, but he had work to do, and we had 2 good feet, you know. We were expected to kind of take care of ourselves.
So you were involved in, I mean, you knew this building when it was a church, the only church in town for decades.
Yes.
And
When I was 4 years old, I was standing right here singing some, did I tell you that already? I was singing some song, Christmas song, yeah, for a Christmas program.
when did you start singing? I mean, just, I guess, from when you were a little child, you loved singing.
I sang in the choir when I was about 13, and they allowed, some of the older people didn't like it. It was a large choir, and what was her name? Cole, Nettie Cole, I don't remember her name, that not this Cole, that played the piano, and she wanted some of us younger kids to join the choir, the junior choir, and so I did. And I just fell naturally to me, and I sang alto, a lot of harmony, and I sang a lot. And then I got very active in the youth group at the Grange, and we had a girls quartet, and we had a boys quartet, and one of them's right over there, Keith Dixon. And so the 2 Martinazzi girls, the 2 Milan girls were the girls quartet, and the 2 Dixon boys and the 2 Zuver boys were the boys quartet. And we were pretty darn good. Back then they didn't have recordings, you know. So it would have been nice to have that recorded.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It was really fun. It was just a good, healthy thing. I feel like I had a very healthy childhood. Old-fashioned now, people would say, but it was healthy.
Did you ever go to the Spot? The Spot Tavern?
No. Well, you know, it was not always a spot. It was in the 30s, Dad said it was a lunchroom, Cloud's lunchroom. And then the Herberholtz family came in, and it was called Kate's Bar. And they were there for quite a while for the Gensmans, not Gensman,
Chisholms?
move in, and they called it the Spot, yeah. It was always, you know, they used to have ball games, town team ball games down here off of Nyberg. They had a big ball field where now, then after that, the dog food company came in, you know. And after the ball game, everybody would come. And then they'd go to the Spot and have a beer or a Coke, you know, and chat about the game. And it was very, very homey, very, lots of fun.
Yeah.
And we would kind of, not very often get in there, but once in a while we would go with Dad.
Yeah.
He'd give us a Coke. There was a little ice cream shop. You could get an ice cream cone. That's what we did, yeah. And on the other side was a barber. I know, because my grandfather, Julius, would drive his Alice Chalmers tractor down here and get a shave and a haircut. And stop in for a beer.
And sports seemed to be a really important part of the community life.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Because there were basketball teams.
Yes, they were.
And baseball.
I don't know about football, but yeah. I remember up at the gym in the school, the new school, there were lots of town team games, and we would go and watch them. And
Slim and Laura Kemp were sponsors. They had the feed store.
And the feed store, yeah. I want to talk about the feed store a little bit. It was originally on the corner where the brick store is now. Of course, the brick store's been moved too. And the feed store had a cupola on the top, and it's where you went to get your grain, you know, or they sold grain and hay and all sorts of farm equipment. Not big equipment, but small stuff, rabbit food, and all the stuff that a farm would need. Yeah. And during the war, Second World War, people would gather at the feed store and at a certain time, and then we'd drive together into the shipyards to work on the ships. That was really kind of homey. I mean, people did things together. People did things together a lot.
Yeah. Smaller, 200 people?
Yeah, something maybe like that. And everybody knew everybody else. And if someone was in trouble, you know, sometimes when we had the strawberry field, we'd have people come in and help us pick because they knew we were behind. We had a lady, usually we went to the cannery in Sherwood with the berries, and you had to take the top off. But then we also had a customer that would come from town. Her name was Josephine something. And she would buy a flat of what we call commercial berries, and it was the old-fashioned flat that was wooden, and 12 little wooden hallux, and we'd have to leave the stems on, so they were very pretty. And my mom liked to set them up, so she'd each little box, and she'd turn them up so the strawberries were on top, pointed up. Very pretty. And she came out and she paid $3 a flat for those commercial flats.
Oh.
So that was big money for us.
Yeah, yeah. Huh. And was there any kind of community celebration around Christmas time? I know there is here now. There are Christmas parades and, of course, a lot of homes lit up. But how did you celebrate, say, Christmas or the holidays?
There was always a Christmas program at the school, and I think at the Grange too. And then later on, there was a big sequoia tree, I think, on Boone's Ferry across from the. You remember that?
I remember that.
And the fire department would come and put lights on it all the way up to the top. They'd have their big ladders, and then the kids would come around and they had a big campfire, and we'd sing hymns and our Christmas songs, And I don't know if they passed out candy or something, but at the school programs they always passed out a little bag of candy with some peanuts in it. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Let's see. The Booster Club, that kind of, I don't know if they kept the Crawfish Festival going for years. I think the VFW started
the
it.
Crawfish Festival because they used to meet up in the hall right around the corner, but it was the VFW hall and it was torn down. And so they wanted to build the Quonset hut or across from the
Seneca?
Seneca, yes, thank you. Yeah. And so they decided to start this festival called the Crawfish Festival. And at that time, a lot of people would trap crawfish from the river. And so they got together, and Lois Dalton was really big, instrumental in this. They would cook the crawfish and then serve them at the festival. And it was a really big deal. They had a parade, and it would start up at the school, marching bands. Gosh, we have our 4-H club, where kids took our little animals, let our animals down. And at one time there was a pickup with all the girls in it from the cooking and sewing club. And we took our little animals one time, and the horses, and everybody got involved. Everybody was involved. The Grange had a float, they called it a float, but it was a truck loaded with hay in the back, and all these kids sat there, and Russell, what was his name? James Russell played the accordion. Remember that, Keith?
No.
Yeah, he played the accordion, and then they all sang. Well, not me, because I would have been on that thing, but I was somewhere else. The people that ran the store, the white store, it wasn't you, before Garrett's, and I don't remember what the name was, but they had his car, and they had another girl and me in swimsuits riding on the rollers.
So you got back at your mom because she didn't want you to be the queen of, was it the Crawfish Festival? She didn't want you to try for that, but you got back
They would
at
have
her.
a queen, and they would, at that time they would sell tickets. And I said, Mom, I want to run for that. No daughter of mine is going to stand out of the spot tavern and sell tickets. One stood outside the tavern and sold tickets, and she was a girl from
Sherwood?
the flood washed.
Vanport?
Vanport flood. Yeah, she was Vanport. They lived right down here in this little house down there. Darlene Schumann. Anyway, that's the way she goes. So then when my daughter was in high school, I said, Lila, I want you to run for Crawfish. Oh, I wouldn't do that. Yes, please. And her dad said, Lila, please, it means a lot to your mother. She won. And you were too, weren't you?
Yeah.
Yes. Maybe other people here that So I live vicariously through my daughter. Don't we all?
Yeah. Oh, and something else that's important in Tualatin history is the Sweek House, which kind of hides away behind the railroad tracks and bushes. But that house has been here since 1868, I think. Anyway, and that's something that is still there. I suppose the oldest building in Tualatin. And Althea Pratt bought it in the 50s, I think, and did a lot to fix it up and maintain it and open it to the public. So
the Historical Society used to put on teas there, and tea on the veranda, and it was a big thing. We'd go over, the Historical Society would go over and clean up the yard because they didn't have much help, and do a lot of and then Althea, and then we'd serve tea and refreshments on the porch, rather fancy. And then she would take everyone through the house and explain, how it was quite the lovely house.
Yeah. The only building in the community on the National Registry of Historic Homes. So, well, maybe that will happen again.
It's
Open
a
to the
beautiful
community.
House. And, at one time we had Maria Sweek's diary. Karen and I did, and we lent it to the Daughters of Pioneers or something, and they didn't give it back. But we have a copy of it.
Oh, good, yeah. And you did a book, a booklet including, 4 different diaries from pioneers, which we have on sale here.
Yes, we have a lot of things on sale.
We do.
that are good if you're interested in history, and they make lovely gifts.
Yeah, they do. You know so much and remember so much about Tualatin history. Where did you get the interest, or where did you learn about events and people who lived here before you were born? Where did you get that information?
My dad, he knew everybody. He was born here in 1901. He knew everybody. And so when my mother wrote these stories of Tualatin. We talk about that for the Crawfish Festival in '59. And so I read them all, and boy, I thought that was really interesting. And then Clayton Nyberg came to me one time and said, we need to print those stories of your mother's in the Washington County Historical Society, And so they did. Ori Nyberg typed them up again because they didn't have computers and copiers, So she typed them up, and they printed that again, my mother's stories. And then, of course, and then...
and she and your dad had interviewed some of the oldest families.
Yes, they went around to all the families.
To get the stories.
And they worked together. That was the first time, the only time, well, with the kids, but I mean, that they really worked together. Because she was a really good writer, and he knew everything. It was real clear in his mind. Having grown up here and never lived anywhere else, everybody was important to him. Yeah. At the brick store, he says that when they were building the brick store, he went inside and he carved his initials in the windowsill, and they had taken it out and put in a new one. But he told me that. Those are little things that he told me, and all those things kind of collected in my memory. And then when my kids were in high school, I started going to classes at PCC, and I took a lot of history classes and writing classes. And they had on file there a lot of historic papers and things. And so I would copy these and bring them home to my dad. God, he was just thrilled. And he was real interested. And he looked at me right in the eye, he said, when you write your history, what? Don't forget these 2 things. The blowing up of the dam in 1906 and the double murder in 1916. And I didn't forget. How I wish I'd gone to the newspapers then, the files, and brought all that stuff home to Dad to reread. That was real sharp in his mind, and I liked my dad, and I listened to him.
So 40 years ago, or about almost 40 years ago, you and Karen Lafky Nygaard started the Historical Society, and then did the book and gathered some other articles for publication. What inspired or motivated you and Karen to do that?
No, she was my Sunday school teacher upstairs in the upper room. Methodists have a paper called the upper room, so I always call it the upper room. She was my Sunday school teacher. She was about 8 or 10 years older than me, and I knew her. I sang in the choir, and she sang in the choir, and she went off to. I've been up at her place. Yeah, we knew each other, but then she went off, and I'd forgotten all about her. She came back, and people were talking about Karen Beach. I had no idea who that was because I knew her as Loyce Lafky. So anyway, we got together, and I don't know how it happened, but we just started talking about her childhood and my childhood, and then we got to be good friends, and we'd take long walks, and she says, we should start a historical society. I said, oh, no, we can't. Yes, we can, and we did. Then she would say, we should write a book. Oh, we can't, no. Yes, we can. And then I had been gathering stuff ever since those classes at PCC. I'd been gathering information, and there are big piles in my office, piles on bridges, rivers, cities, different things, And I didn't know what to do with them, but she organized them with all the other stuff. We went down to the state archive several times, found out things that we would never have known. For instance, there was, on one wall they had cases from Oregon pioneers from the 1950s, 52, and I just happened to look over there and found 2 that we wouldn't have known about. Zenas Brown was one, of Browns Ferry, and you buy that book and you can read about it, the murder planet. And the other one was blowing up of the dam, and another murder thing up in Stafford, yeah. So, the more you learn, the more you want to learn. And going around and talking to people was really fun.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, you started interviewing and getting some oral histories recorded. Yeah.
Yeah, Jane Ibach was really, really interesting, really good. And I think we interviewed one of the Sunday brothers, from, that used to be so musical.
Yeah. So I know that this this book, this version or publication of your book came out about 20 years ago.
It's the second edition, yes.
The second edition, but we're working on an updated edition to bring in COVID and other things. But hopefully soon we'll have these reprinted and available for purchase here. But
well, all the things I've done in my life, which is I'm just a farmer, had a lot of children, 5 children in 6 years, and helped start Lee Farms. But I'm proudest of this.
Yeah, you should be. Thank you for all the stories, the history of Tualatin that you remember, and thank you for being willing to do this.
You're welcome.
Yeah.